This is Trinity Storm and you are watching third and final part of What If Naruto was one of the original Avengers. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Naruto was taken aback by the size of the ship he was standing on. He'd seen the blueprints for it when he infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D., but standing on the deck of the helicarrier was something entirely different. Steve and Tony were standing off to the side with Banner, watching as the massive turbines lifted the structure into the air, but Naruto was more concerned with his girlfriend's reaction. Naruto's condition for the retrieval had been that if there was going to be danger, he wanted Naruto right there where she was best protected. "It's incredible," she exclaimed over the roar of the turbines. "Not as incredible as you." As the ship lifted into the air, Naruto shouted back, holding her in his arms. "Aw, they're so adorable." Tony squealed, a playful expression on his face as he elbowed Banner in the side. "Don't you get sick from it?" Banner sighed and walked over to where Natalia was waving for them to follow her, rubbing his ribs and giving Tony a dirty look. What followed was a long and rather boring explanation of how the helicarrier worked, which Naruto only partially understood. When they arrived on the flight deck, Nick greeted them all and directed them to a set of chairs at a conference table near the back of the room. Naruto declined the chair offered to her and instead sat on Naruto's lap. Naruto assumed she was marking her territory by directing her gaze at several of the young women on the flight deck. Steve, who was getting as many looks as Naruto, was probably wishing for the same thing. Banner was soon on his way to his labs, followed by Tony. The two were talking about things that Naruto only barely understood based on his reading, but they seemed to be getting along. Steve and Naruto were sparring in the gym with Naruto keeping score when Coulson arrived. Loki had been discovered in Germany, and they needed to find him. Naruto kissed him before Naruto and Steve went to the armory to suit up. Tony had brought his secret project, which was a modified suit of Iron Man armor for Naruto to wear. The suit, which consisted of only a small chest plate, boots, and forearm guards, was designed to work with Naruto's chakra. Tony had engraved storage seals into his forearms based on the ones Naruto used, and after Naruto activated them with his blood, they now held several thousand kunai each. The boots contained miniature repulsor emitters that could triple Naruto's jump distance, as well as shock absorbers to help cushion his kicks and landings when jumping from great heights. The chest plate was more of a shirt of interconnected pieces that allowed Naruto full range of motion while storing more weapons in seals on the sides and back. It also had a full range of communication equipment built into it, so Naruto didn't have to worry about losing his cell phone while on a mission, which had happened to him twice before. As an added bonus, the pieces were all painted black with an orange stripe up the sides, so Naruto figured he could live with it for the time being. "Loki was just spotted in Germany," Fury said as they approached the hangars. "Naruto and Steve, you'll be taking a quick mover to the general area, and Natalia will be your backup. You're their air support, Stark. Unless the situation appears to be dire, stay out of sight. Maximum force is authorized if you believe it is necessary, but keep in mind that we need him alive." "Yes, sir," exclaimed Steve, our Captain America, given his suit. "Whatever, Mom," Tony said as he zipped up his suit and exited the open hangar doors. Naruto simply nodded as they boarded the plane. Fury wasn't kidding when he said it was a fast mover, because they were on the scene in less than 30 minutes. It was also a good thing, because Loki was already outside, threatening the onlookers. Natalia flew them low over a nearby building so Naruto and Steve could exit, then drew back as they made their move. Naruto stayed on the rooftops, closing in on Loki as quickly as he could, while Steve jumped down to prevent Loki from attacking an elderly man. This resulted in a fight between Loki and Steve, which Steve was losing. "You got it, or do you want me to?" Tony inquired over the open communication channel. Naruto paused for a moment before shrugging. "He's completely yours. I'll clear the civilians while you go after him hard and fast." Tony replied, "Just the way I like it," as he cut into the local speaker systems and AC/DC began playing, distracting Loki. According to Naruto, the fight was relatively quick and far too easily won. Loki surrendered and then stopped speaking, almost as if he was waiting for something. At least until Naruto approached him. That elicited an interesting reaction from the god, as the man drew back with a genuine fear in his eyes. He still refused to speak, but he never took his gaze away from Naruto. Loki's face turned pale, and you could almost feel his emotions. "I don't think he likes you much," Tony said as they watched Loki try to distance himself from Naruto. "He was simple enough to get here," Steve added. "Too easy, in fact, but when he saw you, it was as if he regretted his decision." "Yeah, I noticed that," Naruto agreed. "How come, Loki?" "You shouldn't be here," Loki said, fear visible in his eyes. "This isn't your reality. No, this is not your universe. What brings you here, demon?" "Haven't heard that one in a long time," mused Naruto, ignoring the fact that no one was looking at him with suspicion. "To be honest, I'm not sure why I'm here. Just your luck, I am, and you have piqued my interest. You might not like that, especially if your intention is to harm people I care about." "Yeah, he's got a thing about that," Tony added. "Where did you get that?" Natalia inquired as the sky erupted in lightning, causing Loki to flinch. "Don't like storms?" Tony inquired. "No, I don't like what comes after," Loki replied as something landed on the jet's roof. Tony reapplied his helmet and lowered the rear access door to investigate. A tall blonde with a cape and hammer entered through the door and knocked him back just as he reached it. The fall knocked Steve off his feet, but Naruto leapt over them. The man had grabbed Loki and dragged him out the back of the jet before he could react. Tony had quickly followed them, with Steve donning a parachute and jumping out the door despite Natalia's warning. "I'm the youngest in the group, and I still feel like I'm babysitting them some days," Naruto grumbled as he examined his weapons and armor. "Turn us around, come in low and fast over their heads." "Yes, sir," the pilot replied. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Natalia inquired, her voice tinged with genuine concern. "That was Thor, the ultimate hothead," Naruto smirked. "Combine Tony's ego with Steve's sense of fair play, and you've got a fight on your hands. Who else is going to stop them and prevent Loki from fleeing while they're distracted?" "Good point," Natalia said, nodding. "Contact me in 2 minutes." Naruto had done a lot of stupid things throughout his life. Fought enemies who could crush him in an instant. Fought battles that should never have occurred. Reluctant princesses were saved. Pined for a pink-haired girl who saw him as nothing more than an annoying brother. Still, jumping out of a fast-moving jet into a fight between 3 of the world's most powerful people took the cake. He managed to come down between Steve and Thor just as the Asgardian was about to strike the super soldier's shield with his hammer. While pushing Steve clear, Naruto managed to catch the hammer in his hand, which stung. He then leaned back and kicked Thor in the chest, knocking him off his feet and onto his ass. Oh, and he still had Thor's hammer in his hand. What are you 3 thinking? Looking around, he noticed Loki watching the whole thing from the top of a rocky outcropping. While you 3 idiots are arguing over who has the bigger dick, Loki is up there laughing his $1 off. "So, would you mind telling me which of you was going to make sure he didn't get away?" Thor, who was staring at Naruto as if he were something from a nightmare, kept trying to summon his hammer. Naruto sensed the hammer's attempt to respond and increased the amount of chakra in his body until the hammer appeared to give up. Tony had risen to his feet and was staggering over to them, clearly dazed by the battle. Steve, on the other hand, appeared embarrassed, his head bowed and shoulders slumped. Naruto simply sighed, summoning several clones to retrieve Loki while wondering why the man hadn't fled. It was almost as if he desired to be apprehended. "When we get back to base, we're going to have a long discussion about this," Naruto growled as the clones returned with Loki, who was now staring at him as if he'd seen a ghost. "Especially you 2, Thor and Loki, and why are you staring at me so intently? Could you please give me Mjolnir back?" Thor begged. Naruto gave it a quick glance before tossing it back to the Asgardian. Sure. But if you act like a child again, I'll take it away from you. Got it? Yes, I understand, that God replied, looking at the hammer in disbelief. Naruto stepped back, leaving the three men and their prisoner to wait for their ride, confident that he wouldn't be overheard. As soon as he felt safe, he called Natalia on a secure line and requested to be rerouted to Fury. He didn't have to wait long before the man answered. Something's not right here, Nick, he said after making the connection. Loki had the perfect opportunity to make a run for it, but he didn't. He just sat there waiting for them to finish their fight. It bothers me. I agree, Fury grumbled. Natalia called me immediately after you jumped. Loki would have had an excellent opportunity to clarify. Based on what we witnessed him do in Germany, he has the ability to flee, but he does not. Loki wishes to be apprehended. Underneath, Naruto muttered before speaking up. He has a plan, and whatever it is, it requires him to be in custody for it to work. That means he wants something from S.H.I.E.L.D. and must be present to obtain it. Can you tell me where you normally take a prisoner like him? Here to the carrier, Fury replied. We've got the most secure cell on the planet aboard. It was intended to contain Banner if he ever became out of control. And Barton would have known that, so Loki most likely knows that, Naruto speculated. That means they can have whatever they want on the carrier. It also means we can't let him set foot on it. I agree, but I don't have anywhere else for him, Fury countered. He's too powerful to just throw in a county jail. I don't like it, Nick, Naruto grumbled, this smells like an ambush to me. I agree, but there's nothing else we can do right now, Fury agreed. I'll beef up security, cancel all flights in and out, and personally sit on the man if necessary. No, I'll sit on him, Naruto countered. He and Thor don't seem to like me much, so let's take advantage of that. I'll station a platoon of clones to protect him until we find the Tesseract. And then what? Fury inquired. Naruto turned to see the S.H.I.E.L.D. jet land. Then we'll come up with a more permanent solution. Naruto kept his word and had 20 clones guard Loki. Naruto used a modified version of Jiraiya's Violet Flames battle encampment barrier, much to the chagrin of that god. Depending on the number of clones Naruto used, this version could be tailored to a specific location. In this case, 16 clones were forming and maintaining the barrier around S.H.I.E.L.D.'s specially designed cell, 8 on the ground and 8 on the ceiling. The other 4 clones were stationed just outside the room's 4 entry points, preventing anyone from entering. With 16 clones maintaining the barrier, the chakra demand was spread out, allowing them to keep it intact for 24 hours before dispelling. Naruto recognized that this wasn't a perfect solution, but it was the best he could come up with given the time constraints. They'd just have to be extra cautious when the clones vanished and Naruto replaced them, which is why he had 4 more clones guarding the doors. Loki had tried playing mind games with the clones only an hour into his confinement. Imagine his surprise when they didn't even acknowledge him, despite the fact that he was deep in meditation, attempting to conserve as much chakra as possible. Loki was clearly upset about being ignored, judging by his ranting and raving on the muted monitors. While Thor was telling them about Loki's past, Naruto just stood there watching the man stalk around his cell. Thor wanted to go down and talk to his brother right away, but Naruto just stared at the god, and Thor backed down. If Naruto had his way, Loki was going to be spending a lot of time by himself. When they no longer needed him, Naruto promised himself that Loki would pay and justice would be served. The next morning, Naruto awoke with Naruko in his arms. Even though they had separate rooms, she didn't like sleeping alone, and Naruto didn't either. The fact that Loki was on board and that everything seemed to be going so well worried the shinobi. Every instinct told him this was a trap, but what was it for? There was nothing on board that made it all worthwhile. There was no super powerful energy source here. Loki already possessed one. The only thing that distinguished this location was that it was one of many shield bases, and of course. Crap, Naruto moaned as it clicked. The only thing here worth anything is that we are the only ones who can stop him. We have to get moving, sweetie. Don't want to, whined Naruto, pushing her face deeper into Naruto's chest. Sleep first, then play later. Kissing Naruto passionately, Naruto woke her up in the quickest way possible, which also happened to be the most pleasurable. He's up and at him. We're in trouble, and I believe it will be severe. Naruto rolled out of bed and headed for the bathroom after seeing Naruto look as serious as she had ever seen him. Naruto would have enjoyed seeing his naked girlfriend first thing in the morning, but he had other plans. That didn't mean he wouldn't play with her later, but seeing her naked always put him in a good mood. Sue him because he was male. Naruto heard the toilet flush followed by running water before Naruto walked out of the bathroom, still as naked as the day she was born, and toward where she had tossed her bag in a corner. Naruto grabbed his belongings and went to the bathroom before donning his combat gear. His armor had gone down with Tony's suit, and Naruto hoped he wouldn't need it right away. Naruto quickly tied his regular combat boots before grabbing his weapon pouches and the wazukashi he had brought back to the room with him in case of an emergency. Naruto was pulling out a pair of black shorts and a matching black shirt as he did so. Naruto recognized the material they were made of as the same stuff he used to make his combat gear. They quickly realized that when Naruto transformed, her clothes couldn't handle it unless she was wearing something very loose-fitting or extremely stretchy. This, combined with Pepper's subtle prodding, had led Tony to create a set of clothes that Naruto could wear to provide her with at least some modesty when she partially transformed. The shorts even had a hidden flap in the back, normally held closed by Velcro, allowing her tails to easily emerge, removing the need for her to constantly run around looking for something to cover herself with after a partial transformation. Nothing had yet stood up to a full transformation, but Tony was working on it. The last thing she took from her bag was a pair of black slippers made of cheap canvas that she could easily kick off. Naruto turned around and looked at her boyfriend, resting one hand on her hip, leaning back on that leg and slightly bending the other in a way Naruto thought was damned sexy. How do I appear? Naruto let out a low whistle before responding, it's scorching hot and dangerous. Let's get started. They ran out of the room, hand in hand, to Tony and Banner's lab. They were almost there when they heard the first scuffles from inside. Naruto was forced to separate Tony and Steve as they entered the room, both men looking like they were about to start swinging at any moment. He also noticed a heavy feeling in the air, as if a weight was pressing down on his mind. It reminded him of times when Kurama tried to take control, as if his body was tense for battle. Given that none of the previous attempts had succeeded, this one failed as well. Still, the sight of Banner holding Loki's staff was unsettling. He was about to say something when the first explosion ripped through the ship. Naruto was knocked off his feet, hitting his head against the doorframe, and everyone was scrambling by the time he cleared his head. What worried him was that Naruto was nowhere to be found, as were Banner and Natalia. Agent Hill yelled over the earpieces, "Number 3 turbine is down. One more defeat and we're done." "Stark, you imitate that," yelled Fury. Tony had already left, most likely for his armory suit, but he responded over the open channel. "I'll take care of it. Coulson, put the detention section on defensive lockdown, then get to the armory," Fury said as he helped Naruto to his feet. "Romanova? Where is Naruto?" Naruto inquired, to which Fury simply pointed out the shattered window. "We're fine," Natalia said over the radio. Naruto summoned several clones and directed them to accompany Fury as he leapt through the broken window. He landed seconds later to find Naruto attempting to free Natalia's leg from a tangle of broken pipes. Banner was lying face down a little way away from them, struggling to get up. Even by Naruto's standards, the amount of chakra pouring off the man was incredible. It was obvious what was about to happen, and it wouldn't be good in this confined space unless Banner could maintain some control over it. "Banner. yelled Naruto, "change your mind and come over here to help us." Naruto was suddenly met with 3 pairs of eyes staring at him as if he were insane, with Natalia perfectly capturing the situation. "Are you fucking insane?" Naruto simply smiled, his face expressionless as he spoke. "Fighting change will not work this time, so aim it, Bruce. Allow it to out and assist me in protecting these people." It was unclear whether his words reached Bruce's mind, but he suddenly stopped fighting the transformation and seemed to find some peace. Naruto was impressed by Bruce's transformation, even though it appeared to be painful. Natalia and Naruto were terrified, but Naruto simply smiled and motioned for them to calm down. When the transformation was complete, the Hulk sat there for a moment, slightly perplexed, until Naruto approached him calmly and offered the Mammoth Man a hand up off the floor. "Are you with me, Bruce?" he inquired, scanning the man's eyes for signs of aggression. "We have work for you if you're interested." "Help," Bruce growled, ignoring Naruto's hand and rising on his own. "Good. First we need to get this pipe off Natalia's leg," Naruto said, turning away from Bruce and walking over to where the ladies appeared to be about to piss themselves. "Naruto, when the pipe is finished, pull Natalia out." Bruce, or the Hulk, grunted before reaching down and picking up the pipe, cutting Naruto's instructions short. The beast tossed the pipe across the room, burying it in the opposite wall, with a flick of his wrist. Naruto simply laughed as Naruto and Natalia backed away from the Hulk, which seemed to irritate the giant. Naruto walked over to the ladies, one in each arm, and pointed up to the window from which they had come. Naruto smiled as he looked over at the Hulk. "Come on, big guy, we've got some smashing to do," he said as he channeled chakra into his muscles and leapt up to the window, followed by the Green Man a second later. "Where do you need us, Fury?" "I've got the girls and Bruce with me, but I think he'll need more space than the corridors can provide." "Can we go through the roof here?" Fury remained silent for a moment before responding. "If you're telling me that Banner is currently big, mean, and green, I'm going to shoot you." "Yep, that's what I'm telling you," Naruto replied, his voice overly cheerful. The sounds of explosions and gunfire cut Fury's response short. The Hulk, who was still perplexed, was becoming anxious as a result of the noise in the distance. Naruto tapped the beast on the arm to get his attention, then smiled at him, which seemed to calm the beast slightly. Naruto asked Natalia an unasked question as he pointed to the roof. She seemed to pause for a moment before nodding. Naruto smiled once more, then looked at Naruto and said, "I love you." "I love you, too," she said, smiling. Naruto returned his attention to Banner and pointed to the ceiling. "Big guy, you're going up. Would you mind clearing a path for us?" While Naruto spoke to Natalia, the Hulk smiled and crouched for a moment before launching himself up through the ceiling and the deck above it. "You either keep her safe or answer to me. Got it?" "Got it," she said, turning to drag Naruto out of the room. Naruto sighed and prayed to whatever god might hear him that Naruto would be safe. After that, he jumped up through the hole to follow Banner. The beast was currently waiting for him on the massive airborne carrier's flight deck. Naruto pointed to the nearest freight elevator and took off, with the Hulk close behind. It was an odd sight to see a young man leading the Hulk like a child in a game of tag, but it seemed to work. They were almost there when they heard the familiar sound of another engine shutting down. Naruto was at a disadvantage because he couldn't hear anything over his earpiece due to the sound of jets and tankers colliding. Two of the world's most powerful people, sitting on top of a massive air carrier that's falling out of the sky, groaned Naruto, turning to face the Hulk. "Doesn't that sound like a bad joke?" The Hulk simply cocked his head to one side, much like a dog does when it thinks you're insane, which made Naruto laugh. "Bruce, I need you to get out of here. This isn't a battle you can win, not in this form, so get out." "No," the beast growled, surprising Naruto as the massive man placed a hand on his shoulder. Naruto simply nodded, not wanting to turn away the assistants. Just then, he felt his clones, who had been holding up the barrier around Loki, dissipate. Thor talking to someone he couldn't see, then slamming his hammer into the barrier, shattering it and releasing Loki, was the last thing he remembered from them. The clones had been dispelled by the resulting backlash, and Naruto could only speculate that the 4 guards had been dispelled in the original explosion and he had not noticed because he was only half aware at the time. He was on his way to an elevator shaft when he heard the ship's number 3 engine engage, stabilizing it. "We have to stop Loki," Naruto said as he dashed towards the elevators. In an impressive display of his own strength, Naruto channeled a massive amount of chakra and grabbed one side of the elevator doors, while the Hulk did the same with the other. The two figures ripped both doors, each weighing about 2 tons of heavily reinforced steel, before tossing them over their shoulders. Naruto looked back at the now burning transport jet that had been anchored to the deck as a result of the explosion. With a shrug, Naruto jumped into the empty shaft, followed by the Hulk. Before the Hulk ripped the doors open, they landed on top of the already damaged elevator car, crushing it even more. Naruto led the way deeper into the ship, the corridors barely wide enough for the Hulk to pass through. They arrived at the detention area just in time to see Coulson blast Loki through the wall. Naruto turned to check on Coulson after realizing Loki had already vanished. The man was a shambles, and it was clear that he was dying from the amount of blood pooling around his body as he leaned up against the wall. Naruto looked around the room for any sign of who had done this and for Thor, whom he was going to beat the snot out of for releasing Loki. Coulson appeared surprised to see the Hulk standing behind Naruto, but given his current condition, there was nothing he could do. "Loki, he tricked Thor into the cell," Coulson grumbled. "I dropped him a minute ago. He claimed he was curious to see if the fall would kill him. It turns out I was conversing with an illusion and received a spear in the back for it." "Crap," yelled Naruto before turning to face the Hulk. "Did you manage to locate him?" The question perplexed the Hulk, causing Naruto to sigh. "Bruce, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out eventually. Thor is far too tenacious to let something like this kill him." Naruto returned his attention to Coulson, trying to think of anything that could save the man. Unfortunately, one of the few things he had no experience with was the healing arts. At least, there was no mention of him ever learning them in his journal. Naruto was confident that if Tsunade or Sakura had been present, they could have saved the man, but it was beyond his abilities. It was so damned frustrating to have all this power but no way to use it to help someone in need. He'd previously collaborated with Coulson. Coulson was Naruto's eye in the sky, sometimes literally, while he was retrieving the target. They had formed a friendship, though Coulson's obsession with female classical musicians and Captain America memorabilia occasionally perplexed the younger man. Still, no one deserved for him to die alone. Naruto sat down in front of him, knowing the time was approaching for his friend. "Hasn't it been a fun ride, hasn't it?" Naruto asked, maintaining eye contact with his friend. Coulson smiled and nodded. "It was never dull when you were there. Naruto, you may appear tough, but you are a good man." "I try. Is there anything I can do for you?" "Guide them," the dying man replied. "Cap will lead them, but it is up to you to guide them. You're their beating heart. They'll need you right now. The Avengers will be motivated by this." Those were his final words, and Phil Coulson died as he said them. There was a brief moment of silence before Naruto and the Hulk both leaned back and let out roars of rage and loss. Fury found them in the morning, mourning the loss of a good man. Banner was changing back until he collapsed next to Naruto on the ground, still roaring until he ran out of air. Naruto rose, bowing formally to his now-dead friend before turning and offering a helping hand to Banner. With one last look at his friend's body, Naruto assisted Bruce towards the door. Naruto growled as he looked back over his shoulder at Fury. "I'll find him and kill him. Loki is no longer safe anywhere." When Naruto arrived at the flight deck with Bruce in tow, there were several happy reunions. They'd stopped by Bruce's quarters to get him some clothes, only stopping long enough for him to put on his pants and shirt before continuing on their way. Naruto was delighted to see Naruto waiting for him, and the kiss he received from her demonstrated that she was equally delighted to see him. Natalia's friend Clint Barton had been rescued, and the redhead was currently ensuring he was free of Loki's control. He was about to ask her how that happened when Nick's voice over the PA announced Coulson's death. The news devastated even Naruto, who had only had me the man a few times. She clutched Naruto as if she was afraid to let go, which he felt as well as he held her tightly in his arms. "The other guy trusted you," Bruce explained after a brief pause. "I don't recall much else, but I recall that. He trusted you because you were strong and didn't fear him. I could tell he was trying to change back because he knew I could save Coulson but didn't know how to let go of his rage." "He's you, Bruce," Naruto said, peering over Naruto's shoulder at the man. "Whatever you think, he's still you. I was confident you wouldn't hurt me, and you didn't. You stayed with me even when I told you to leave. That tells me everything I need to know about you. You are a good man at heart, whether you are pink and flabby or green and snarling. We'll work on it later, but I recognize a fatal wound when I see one, and there was nothing you could have done to save him. Do not torture yourself by believing otherwise." "I'm not flabby," Bruce grumbled, causing Naruto to laugh and Naruto to snort. "Yes, you are," Naruto countered, "but we're going to fix that. Simply wait." They were all seated around the conference table on the flight deck an hour later. Almost all of them were present. There was still no sign of Thor, but Naruto had his doubts. Natalia was with Barton, ensuring he was free of Loki's influence, but the rest of them were present as well. Nick was giving his version of a motivational speech, but Naruto wasn't paying attention. No, all he could think about was the young lady by his side. Naruto appeared shaken and determined not to let Naruto leave her sight anytime soon. Sakura would have been envious of her grip on his hand, but it seemed just right to Naruto right now. Her hand, so much smaller than his, fit perfectly in his, as it should. Naruto observed Tony get up and storm out of the room. Steve arrived a split second later, closely followed by Bruce. They had their own reasons for searching, just as Naruto had. He stood up, drew Naruto up with him, and moved toward the doorway. Naruto turned to Fury, a cheeky grin on his face, and said, "Please notify me when they are ready to go." "I'll be ready, but I have a task to complete first." Fury nodded. They both knew what was coming, but Naruto had an important matter to attend to. Naruto was led back to their room by Naruto. Fortunately for them, it was on the opposite side of the carrier from where the explosion occurred. There was still a lot of damage, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. Fury had told him that once the current situation was resolved, they would land the carrier for repairs, but in the meantime, they needed to get the communications gear up and running, not to mention tend to their dead and wounded. Phil Coulson was the SHIELD agent they all knew best, but he wasn't the only one to die today. While the others were focused on Coulson, Naruto was thinking about all the men and women who would not be able to return home to their families when the day was done. Loki had a lot of things to answer for. Naruto led Naruto into their room and locked the door behind them. The young woman was taken aback by his calm and serious demeanor. He simply led her over to the bed and motioned for her to sit. The current situation, losing Coulson and knowing that things were going to get worse before they got better, had crystallized Naruto's vision of the future, and Naruto was an important part of it. Naruto got down on one knee in front of her, took her hand in his, and smiled up at her. Naruto exclaimed, her heart racing and her cheeks flushing as she covered her mouth with her free hand. "I've been thinking about this for a long time," Naruto said nervously. "I even began looking for the ideal ring to give you. Part of me used that as an excuse to put it off, probably due to nerves. Today, however, proved to me that, as the poem says, time is the fire in which we burn. I don't want that flame to go out before you realize how much I adore you. I've always wondered why I came here from my previous world, and now I know. I came here solely to see you. You are the reason I fight, why I will never give up, and why I understand what true love is. I don't have the ring yet, but I do have my heart, which is yours to keep for as long as you want. So, Naruto Namikaze, can you see it in your amazingly beautiful heart to say yes to being my wife? Naruto began to move the moment he finished speaking. Naruto was suddenly on his back, with a crying young woman's lips attached to him with such passion and determination that he was fairly certain she was trying to suck his lungs out through his mouth. Naruto wrapped his arms around her slender waist and returned the kiss with equal passion, wondering if this was what the afterlife was like. Perfect. Naruto drew back after a few moments, still laying on top of him, a grin on her face and tears in her beautiful eyes. Do you think that's a yes? Screw the ring, Naruto said as she kissed him again, though this time it was only a peck in comparison to the previous one. I'll marry you, you stupid man. The newly engaged couple were about to seal the deal when they heard a knock on the door. Naruto did not appear to want to let Naruto go, but he had anticipated it, and no matter how much he despised it, there was still work to be done. Naruto unlocked and opened the door to find Steve standing there with a grim determination. The two men didn't need to speak. They both knew what needed to be done, so Naruto simply nodded before returning a smile to Naruto. I'll be back, he promised, hoping to reassure the young woman that everything would work out in the end. Will you wait for me? Forever, she replied, her eyes welling up with tears. That being said, Naruto exited the room and prayed to Kami that this would not be a broken promise. Naruto concentrated on what needed to be done as he followed Steve to the armory. Loki had to be stopped at all costs and brought to justice for his crimes. The Tesseract had to be recovered, and the threat it represented had to be eliminated. The people who died today would not be able to rest until those two things were completed. As far as Naruto was concerned, if they couldn't sleep, neither could he. That was all there was to it. Stark is attempting to get his suit to work, Steve explained as they walked. He claims to have a new one waiting for him at Stark Tower. We'll kill two birds with one stone because we believe that's where the Tesseract is. As they entered the armory, Naruto scoffed, he's lying his ass off, too. That thing was on the drawing boards when I left, so unless he had Jarvis working on it since we left, the thing is just so many ideas crawling around in that bug house Tony refers to as a brain. Steve came to a halt as Naruto opened the locker containing his armor. Are you saying he intends to fight in a damaged suit? Hell no, Naruto said as he began putting on his armor. I believe Tony is insane enough to try bluffing his way through this until Jarvis completes the new armor. Tony appears to be an egotistical jerk to me. He's an egotistical jerk, but he's got a good heart, even if it's mostly made of metal, and he's one of the bravest men I know. He can do it if he believes he can. So, what's the plan, and how are we going to get there? Agent Barton appears to be free of Loki's mind control, Steve said as he finished his suit. Natalia recommends him, so he'll be our pilot to the tower. Naruto nodded, snapping the final piece of armor into place and beginning to store kunai in the seals. Bruce, how about you? Is he also coming? Steve sat down on a large ammo crate and tightened his boot clasps, saying, he didn't want to at first, but when Tony told him it was time to suit up, Banner agreed. He appears to be convinced that if things get out of hand, you'll be the one to stop him. True, Naruto agreed as he stuffed the last of his kunai into the forearm seals. I don't think he'll get out of hand, but if he does, I'll be able to stop him. I'll hate having to explain why I did it later, but I know he'll understand. Naruto turned around to see Steve staring at him strangely, and he wondered what was wrong until Steve began to speak. When Banner first arrived, I read everything I could about his other half, and I'll admit, the man makes me nervous. If anyone else told me they could stop the Hulk, I'd think they were crazy. But I hear you say it, and I know you can do it. For some reason, I believe that you can achieve anything you set your mind to. Perhaps, Naruto replied after a brief pause. Is that different from you? We both had a skinny little runt who wouldn't give up until he became a hero. The difference is that I grew jaded while you maintained your sense of fairness. I've lost that part of myself, and getting the old me back may be the one thing I can't do." Tony, Bruce, Natalia, and Barton arrived as they were getting ready to board the plane. Naruto almost burst out laughing when he saw Bruce in Tony's super stretchy shorts, but if it worked, it worked. To be honest, no one wanted to see the Hulk's green junk flapping around in the wind. It was just not a desirable image. Tony walked like a scrap heap on legs, his armor sparking from random places. Naruto hoped he'd be able to make it to Stark Tower, but he wasn't about to express his doubts. Barton and Natalia appeared as they usually did, or so Naruto assumed because he had never met Barton in person before. He did notice, however, that Barton was wearing not one, but two mechanized arrow dispensers on his back, indicating that Coulson had relayed Naruto's message to the man. Another thing Naruto owed Phil. As they walked, Steve said, "Stark, go to the tower and get your replacement armor. We'll fly in low and slow, doing a full aerial recon of the area. We'll go in at the first sign of trouble. If necessary, Natalia, you and Barton will provide backup for the rest of us on the ground. Remember, we have no idea what we are up against, so keep your eyes open and be prepared for anything." They all agreed on the plan before storming the plane and kicking the crew member who was working on it out. Naruto laughed as Steve lectured the poor young man as if he were the kid's grandfather, but it worked, and they were getting ready to take off as Tony took off ahead of them. They were off the carrier and on their way before anyone could stop them, which Nick would not have allowed. Naruto was thinking about Naruko and hoping to see her again. Naruto activated his communication equipment, remembering Coulson's dying words, so Tony could hear him. "With Loki commanding an army and an ego larger than Tony's, we may be on the verge of war," he said softly, looking down at his hands. "My days of fighting wars were over, I thought. I honestly hoped they were. I recently asked the woman I love to marry me, and she agreed. What's worse is that I'm not celebrating with her. No, I'm in a fucking jet on my way to the asshole who murdered one of my friends today. The only thing keeping me from letting loose with everything I have and destroying that asshole is the fact that I have my friends, new and old, by my side. Behind me are the people I must protect if I am to be the man Naruto deserves. As a result, here I am. Riding off to war once more." Naruto smiled as he looked up at the people around him. "Today, we may fight and die, but we will protect those we love even if it means losing our lives. Although it sounds cliched, it is true. We are no longer individuals fighting for our own beliefs anymore. Many men and women died today, one of whom was a friend, but all of them were significant. Never forget why they fought, and why we fight. Today, we are more than just individuals. We have come together to fight a common enemy. We are Avengers today." At the end of Naruto's brief speech, his team, no, his friends applauded. Steve nodded, acknowledging that he had realized the same thing Phil Coulson had. Steve would be their leader, but Naruto would be the heart of the group, providing support and a moral compass that would not waver. Yes, Naruto would be the heart, but they would be the body that would hold him up when he was about to collapse. They'd be his team and his family, which was all he'd ever wanted. "Fuck yeah!" yelled Tony over the intercom. That's a motivational speech even Mel Gibson couldn't top. They were circling New York in minutes, looking for any sign of trouble. Trouble arrived in the form of an energy beam and Tony confronting Loki. They heard what Tony had to say, and it took all Naruto's strength not to jump out of the plane when Loki tossed the man through a window. They watched as Tony's new armor rocketed out the window after him, saving him at the last possible moment before Iron Man returned and began attacking the enemy forces. Thor had dubbed them the Chitauri, but Naruto thought they looked like something out of one of Naruto's favorite bad Japanese manga. Natalia and Barton were firing on Loki with the jet's mini cannon while Tony was attempting to take the fight to the enemies before they hit the ground. Unfortunately, Loki had his own cannon, which he used to blow up one of the engines, keeping them in the air. Barton made it to the ground, keeping everyone alive, but it was a close call. They had just cleared the downed plane when they noticed something coming out of the sky and landing on top of the tower. Naruto recognized the figure as Thor, which meant they now had the entire team together. Good thing, because the massive carrier whale thing was launching troops as it made its way down the street. There are civilians down there, Steve explained. Go. We've got this, Natalia said, smiling. As the first of the Chittori foot soldiers approached, Barton nodded and drew his bow. I'm going to have a lot of fun with this. Naruto stopped Steve just as he was about to take off. Let me get you some assistance. Naruto bit his finger to allow the blood to flow before slamming his palm down on the ground and yelling, Kuchios no Jutsu. The area was suddenly filled with the sound of popcorn popping and puffs of smoke. When the smoke cleared, the Avengers were perplexed by the sight of 50 human-sized foxes gathered around them. Naruto gasped as she watched the feeds from the various security cameras and news feeds on the shield carrier, which had just gotten its communications software back up and running. She stood there watching as the largest fox, coal black with white on his underbelly and ears, bowed down to Naruto. The fox had 6 tails, whereas the others had 5 or fewer, and it exuded power and confidence. She would have been even more surprised if she could have heard what was going on. Back on the street, the fox bowed to Naruto and then spoke, shocking everyone. Uzumaki Dono, what are your orders? Naruto looked at the fox, grinning, having just pranked his friends in the middle of a war zone. See those ugly bastards in crappy armor blowing stuff up? Hi! Exclaimed the fox as he looked around at the Chittori. Well, don't let them hurt anyone, Naruto said. Keep the innocent safe, but leave no Chittori alive. Assassinate them all. Every fox in the room bowed, a wicked grin on their faces, and exclaimed, Hi! The foxes split up, slicing through the Chittori in their path like a sword through water, while the other Avengers looked at Naruto as if he were insane. Naruto simply grinned as he watched the foxes annihilate the alien forces. Kurama's final gift would not allow him to return to his original world, but it would allow him to save his new home. Naruto smiled as he turned to face the others. I'll explain later, he said, adjusting his armor. You were going somewhere, Steve, and you should really be on your way. Yeah, be safe, Steve said as he jumped off the raised road they were on and chased the foxes. Can you two keep the rest of these idiots busy? Naruto inquired as he continued to inspect his gear. We've got this, Barton said with a smirk, firing an arrow that killed 6 Chittori. Good, Naruto said, finally standing up straight and looking up at Tony, who was steering the flying whale thing around. Tony. Bring that big anchovy over here. Us? Bruce inquired. Do you not mean me? Naruto shook his head, sending 2 clones off to collect more nature chakra. This time, no. I don't need to flood the area with clones with you guys on my side. So, this time, it's just you and me wreaking havoc. So, as Tony says, it's time to suit up. Tony said over the open channel, anchovy on its way. I'm hoping you have this one because I can't scratch it. We got it, Naruto said as yellow chakra began to flow from his body and his eyes turned orange. Bruce, you might want to reconsider. They were watching the yellow chakra form around Naruto as best they could with a giant flying whale coming at them. It split around him, forming a long coat-like structure and revealing the black armor Tony had made for Naruto. The armor appeared to be changing as well, becoming a solid black under armor with white geometric patterns on it. Finally, 9 tail-like appendages appeared behind him, giving Naruto a commanding appearance. Years later, Natalia would tell her children that it was the first time she knew for certain that they would win. They were going to win because Naruto Uzumaki was on their side, it was as simple as that. Let's go! Yelled Naruto, leaping into the air and sprinting towards the beast that was now sprinting towards them. Bruce chased after him, transforming into the Hulk as they ran. Naruto leapt into the air at the last possible moment, while Hulk drew his fist back. Hulk punched the mammoth beast in the snout, stopping it in its tracks, while Naruto slammed into the beast's body, severing its head. The Chidori screamed for their blood, but Naruto was unconcerned. He leapt up to one of the buildings and dismantled the aliens with his bare hands, while Hulk leapt in the opposite direction and did the same. Natalia and Barton paused for a brief moment before resuming their defense of their current location. Naruto was slicing through the enemy at breakneck speed. Kurama's gift had enabled him to fight in this manner, and Naruto was not about to waste it. He fought his way through the enemy's heart, leaping from building to air chariot, or whatever the things were, and back to building. His trail was littered with broken alien bodies and burning wreckage. He listened as Tony announced Thor's arrival, injured but still fighting. He heard Hulk's earpiece pick up what sounded like laughter as he killed 2 more Chidori, something that not even Naruto associated with the raging beast. The enemy was still on the way, and it appeared to be 3 more of the flying whale things. Naruto witnessed Steve being blasted out of a building after one of the Chidori detonated a bomb. Steve appeared to be in good health, but Naruto made sure to clear the area around him just in case. While Natalia was kicking ass at street level, Barton was taking some incredible shots from the top of one of the buildings. Steve returned to Natalia, but it appeared that Natalia had run out of bullets and was now relying on enemy weapons as a backup. Thor chose that precise moment to appear, injured but still fighting. Naruto had no idea what Steve had said to the god, but a moment later, Thor was on his way to the top of the Empire State Building. Thor was literally throwing lightning at the enemy portal to stop their advance, and it was quite a show. Naruto continued on his journey. The fighting was becoming monotonous, as the Chidori did not appear to be the most inventive beings. He and the Hulk leapt past each other, each destroying the other's air chariot. While the Hulk smashed a window and fled for unknown reasons, Naruto was preparing a beast ball to hurl down the throat of another of the flying whale thingies. What exactly were these things, and how many of them did the enemy have? It didn't matter because the thing swallowed a beast ball whole a second later, which was probably a bad idea because it then turned into a flaming ball of gelatinous goo. Naruto would have congratulated himself if he hadn't just seen Natalia streak by on the back of an air chariot. "What are you doing, Natalia?" he asked over the still open channel. "We're going sightseeing." Naruto shrugged, assuming that if she could still joke around, she had everything under control. "Can you get me a souvenir?" "That'll do." When Naruto heard Steve call his name over the comm, he was watching Thor and Hulk pass him on the back of a sky whale. The Fox's leader, Naruto, says they've run out of energy and are returning home. "Tell him I said thanks and there will be a lot of steaks waiting for him and his friends when this is over," Naruto replied as he kunai 6 more Chidori. "Leader says you better keep that promise," Steve said over the intercom. "He's no longer there. Is there anything else you have up your sleeve?" Naruto dove through a hail of enemy fire, taking the fight directly to the enemy. He had 5 down and 4 more charging before executing a flawless Rasengan and driving it into the roof at their feet. The blast pushed them back and over the edge of the roof, allowing Naruto to catch his breath. More flyers were approaching, and it appeared that 2 more shy whales were on their way. This was spiraling out of control, with no end in sight. He had nearly unlimited chakras since Kurama's death, but even he got tired. They'd all get tired and make a mistake eventually. The war was over when that happened because these beasts were not going to stop until they were all dead. "I've got a few left," Naruto admitted. "It's not going to help us if we end up dead." "Naruto!" yelled a voice that shouldn't have been on this channel. Someone is attempting to direct Director Fury to launch a nuclear attack on Manhattan. "I'm not even going to ask how you got on this channel, Naruto," an irritated Naruto replied. "Does Nick intend to do it?" "No," Naruto said. He told them it was a bad idea and hung up. "Oh, and I requested that Jarvis patch me into your channel." What do I do now? Naruto paused for a moment before responding. You follow Nick's instructions. You hear me because you are his shadow. If he jumps, you will as well. Keep an eye on him and keep him safe. I doubt the council will let this go so easily. Please keep me updated. Got it, she said, laughing. When you give orders, you sound so sexy. You'd better come back in one piece so I can show you how sexy I am. Miss Namikaze, Steve interjected. Perhaps you should save that conversation for a private channel, or even better, your own room. Yeah, Naruto, Tony added. You're going to blush, Steve. There was a very clear sound of a Bronx cheer. Tony, screw you. If you don't bring him back to life, I'll kick your ass, armor or no armor. The same is true for you, Steve. Naruto, I adore you. I love you, too, Naruto said as he dispatched 2 more Chidori. Now go entertain Nick. He noticed a chariot approaching him from the corner of his eye, with Natalia riding on the back of the pilot. Another chariot passed him a split second later, and this time he recognized the passenger as Loki. Naruto drew a kunai and threw it as hard and fast as he could. From his vantage point, he noticed that Barton had done the same. Loki deflected Barton's arrow, but not Naruto's kunai, which buried itself in Loki's shoulder, causing that god to scream in agony just before Barton's arrow exploded. Naruto was about to pursue him when he noticed Hulk leaping up at the building. They all heard Loki's little rant about being better than them thanks to Bruce's earpiece. This was followed by a series of loud crashes and then silence until the Hulk spoke. Punishing God. Did you just beat the shit out of Loki, Bruce? Naruto inquired as he made his way towards ground level and the others. Hulk smash, the beast's deep voice replied, but Naruto was certain he could sense Bruce's smirk even from this distance. Excellent work. Iron Man is down. Exclaimed Barton. He took out a whale, but he's now unconscious. Not getting up and approaching enemies. On it, Naruto said as Barton gave him the directions to Tony. How are things up there? Running low, Barton said. I'd be out by now if Phil hadn't suggested I start carrying more arrows with me. Naruto wasn't about to tell him it was his idea, so he let Coulson take the credit. And what about the others? Natalia just made it to the tower's roof, Barton reported, the sound of battle blaring in the background. For the time being, the Hulk is pinned down. I need to get off the roof because they're coming in too thick and I'm about to be overrun. I'm heading for the ground floor. Best wishes. Naruto was almost there when he saw his friend take off into the air and heard Naruto call him over the comm system. They started one. The council directed 2 pilots to launch nukes on Manhattan, and the men obeyed. We apprehended one, Naruto, but the other escaped. But you have to get out of there, Director Fury said. Can anyone hear me? Natalia asked over the intercom. I know I can do it. I can close the portal. Do it. Exclaimed Steve, but Tony interrupted him. Wait a minute. These things are still coming, Stark. I've got a nuke coming in that'll blow in less than a minute, Tony explained, breaking the silence, and I know exactly where to put it. Stark, Steve said after a brief pause. Do you realize that's a one-way trip? Save the rest for your turn, Jay, Stark instructed over the open channel. Jarvis. Tony has a private channel now. Naruto dashed towards Stark Tower as quickly as he could. What on earth are you doing, Tony? I'm following some advice I got earlier, Tony replied, sounding a little nervous. My best friend once told me that we fight to protect those we love, even if it means risking our lives. I'm just doing my best to live up to his words. Oh no, you've gone fucking noble on me, groaned Naruto. There has to be an alternative. No way, Tony said. This thing can change direction on a dime. I either ride it all the way through or it turns around and explodes. Pepper? Naruto paused as he watched Tony and the nuke streak overhead. She isn't picking up the phone. She practically lives with that thing in her hand, and when I really need to tell her something, she doesn't respond. What do you want me to tell her? Naruto asked as he watched Tony and the nuke begin a steep climb. You know what to tell her, Tony replied. Jarvis has a few video files saved on his computer. Keep an eye on them later. The password is, brother. He'll give you everything then. Take precautions, Naruto. Before Naruto could respond, Jarvis said, signal lost. I'm attempting to reacquire. Naruto went completely insane at that point, tearing through Chidori like they were made of paper on his way to Stark Tower. He looked up and saw the nuke explode through the portal, waiting for Tony to appear at any moment. As the massive ball of nuclear fire expanded towards the opening in space, he heard Steve give the order to close the portal. When the nuke went off, the Chidori dropped like puppets, their stings severed, but Naruto still had one more person to confront. He was completely unaware as the Hulk grabbed something from the sky while still on the private channel. No, Naruto was preoccupied with something else. Loki. Naruto entered the tower through a window and headed straight for Loki, who was just now pulling himself out of the hole the Hulk had dug for him. Unfortunately for him, he should have moved faster because Naruto slammed a fist into the god's face, sending him crashing to the ground. If the Hulk hurt him, Naruto nearly killed him by beating Loki to a bloody pulp. Naruto paused, his hand wrapped around Loki's throat and a Rasengan poised to demolish the man's head. Why? Enraged Naruto, his voice dark and demonic in the same way Kurama's had. What motivated you to do this? I just wanted my father's respect, Loki said simply. I wanted to prove to him that I was as powerful as my brother. Naruto spit in Loki's face, tightening his grip and cutting off his air supply. Respect? Do you think he'll respect you for it? This cowardly act? You didn't fight in this war. Instead, you sat back and watched as others did. That is not a respectable act. You took the lives of innocent people, including 2 of my close friends. That is also not a respectable act. No, all you've earned here today for your crimes is your own death at my hands. Loki scoffed, you think you have the right to judge me? I recognize you, Naruto Uzumaki, or should I say Kyuubi. Before my fall from grace, I would watch your world because Heimdall permitted it. I admired your transformation from buffoon to warrior and wished to be like you. I modeled my life after you, your never say die attitude, and your desire to be Hokage in order to gain the people's respect. When I saw you fall and the demon take control of you, I vowed to succeed where you had failed. Here we are, I, the fallen king, and you, the demon disguised as a human. Will you murder me as you have so many others, demon? Naruto was taken aback, allowing the so-called god to fall to the ground. He looked down at him and considered what he had said. A part of him was surprised that this being had attempted to model his life after him, but Loki had twisted what he had seen and made a mockery of everything Naruto had attempted to achieve. How do you handle situations like this? Yes, he had kept a demon at bay, but hadn't he eventually made that demon his partner and friend? Hadn't Loki learned anything from Naruto's experience? Naruto Uzumaki, a voice called, causing Naruto to turn around just in time to catch something thrown at him. Looking down, he saw Thor's hammer in his hand, and looking up, he saw his friends standing there, smiling, as the blonde thunder god spoke. No demon could ever hold Mjolnir. My hammer may only be wielded by a good man, a man deserving of it. So, no, he is not the demon you accuse him of being. Loki was staring at Naruto's hammer with disbelief until it became too much for him and he burst out laughing. Except for Thor, Naruto and the rest of the Avengers were perplexed by the significance of what had just occurred. Naruto couldn't have cared less, given that he was staring at the smiling face of a clearly alive Tony Stark. Sure, it wasn't what real men did, but Naruto was too damned happy to see his friend alive at the moment to care. Tossing Thor's hammer to Steve while Thor held his brother, Naruto hugged Tony for all he was worth, never seeing Steve catch it easily and look rather confused as he held it. Given the sound of metal squealing, the fact that he hadn't released his chakra made it a little awkward, but Tony returned the hug as Naruto returned to normal. "What is the password, brother?" he inquired after Loki had been apprehended by S.H.I.E.L.D. "Well, I've always wanted an annoying younger brother," Tony explained. "You just happen to be the right person for the job, Sasumi." Naruto smiled as he patted Tony on the back. "Many thanks, brother." "Don't think I'm softening up or anything," Tony said, his voice a little thick. "Come on, let's go get some shawarma. Naruto will be waiting for us there." "What the hell is shawarma?" asked Naruto, who just laughed. "No idea," Tony admitted as he approached the freight elevator. "But I've never had it before, and I think now is a good time to try it." As he followed, Naruto laughed. "What the hell, you only get one life." Tony's perspective. It was all over, the suit was shutting down, and he was falling through space. He looked at the display, which showed that the connection to Naruto, but more importantly, the connection to Pepper, had been severed. Tony could only see one face in front of him as the suit blackened, the cold of deep space seeping into it. He wished he could have talked to her one more time, but if life had taught him anything, it was that you don't always get what you want. He had wanted to say so many things to her since the expo, but he was afraid of messing things up, so he kept his mouth shut. We were as silent as he had ever been. He teased her and let her in as much as he could, but he couldn't tell her the important things. He wanted to tell her he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. She was the only person in his life who inspired him to be a better person, to be the person she deserved rather than a spoiled rich brat who had never grown up. He wished to be a good man for her sake. He knew he would never be perfect, but he would have tried for her. He watched as the ball of nuclear fire raced towards him, hoping that it would be warmer than the bone-chilling cold he was experiencing right now. Tony closed his eyes and imagined himself standing on a beach with Pepper, holding hands. He could see Naruto and Naruto playing in the water in the distance. Steve and Rhodey were also present, drinking beer next to the grill where Happy was cooking. Off to the side, his father and mother sat in lounge chairs, sipping cold iced tea, at least that's what they told people. When Barton chased Natalia down the beach with a supper soaker, the woman in a black bikini was trying to reach a pail of ice-cold water before Barton hit her again. Even Fury was present, despite the fact that he was dressed in a pair of pink swim trunks, which had to be a prank on Naruto's part because the blonde was laughing his fool head off. Tony, like everyone else, was laughing. When he saw Phil Coulson arrive, he was looking at Pepper. A beautiful young woman carrying a cello case stood by the man's side. It was nice to see Phil so happy, and judging by the expression on his face, the woman was the reason for it. Tony didn't believe things could get any better. Only one thing was missing, but then he heard laughter and turned to see two children playing in the sand near the waterline. The girl had his eyes and red hair, while the boy had Pepper's nose and dark hair. Their children, the ones he never admitted he desired but did. He had long desired to be a father, but the one woman he desired to be their mother had always seemed out of reach. Pepper was unconcerned about the money. She didn't care about fancy dresses or expensive jewelry. She couldn't care less about the expensive homes or international trips. No, Pepper could leave all of that behind her and live in a small house for the rest of her life, wearing cut-off jeans and his shirts. Some might have thought she was insane for not needing the money, but Tony saw it as part of what made her perfect. Yes, she was perfect, and as he looked around, he wondered if it could get any better than this. "Tony," said a voice, causing him to turn around and look Phil Coulson in the eyes. "You know, as happy as I am to see you again, you can't stay here. You need to get back to work." Tony insisted, "No, I'm done. My work is finished, and I'm ready for a break." "Sorry, but not right now," Phil responded with a sad smile. "You're still working. Don't worry. You now have people to assist you, so while the work will be difficult, you will not be alone." Tony sighed and returned a sad smile to the children. Do I really have to? Phil Coulson gave him the same sad smile he always gave him. Yes, I'm afraid. Don't worry, someone will be waiting for you. What exactly does that mean? You'll see, was the only response he received before hearing a lion roar right in his face. Tony immediately opened his eyes to see the Hulk, Thor, and Steve leaning over him. He instantly knew he was still alive, and judging by the look on the crowing Hulk's face, the big green softie was to blame. Tony despised returning here after what he had witnessed, but it was true. He concentrated on the dream one last time, memorizing the children's expressions, before pushing it away. Maybe he'd see them again someday, but this time they'd be real. He had work to do until then, and he really needed to see Pepper once she returned from Washington, D.C. What happened? He asked, pretending nothing had happened. Please inform me that no one kissed me. Yes, he was back, and as usual, he disguised himself as a hyperactive playboy. He hoped that one day he would be able to let it go and move on to a better way of life. If there were a God in heaven, Pepper would have a significant role in that life. He had things to do and people to annoy with his crazy antics and strange ramblings until then. It was a role he could play well, but it was also one Pepper could see. That alone convinced him that she was the one he wanted by his side through thick and thin. I believe we won, Steve replied. Not yet, Tony reasoned. I still have a lot of work to do before I win. Please, Pepper, be patient. Naruto was looking out his window at the devastation around Stark Tower a week after the big battle. They were still attempting to remove the massive flying whale things' bodies. The smell was ripe, which meant they were returning to the West Coast tonight. Given the number of repairs that needed to be done on the tower, Naruto was fine with it. Not on purpose, Bruce had done a number on Naruto and Naruko's apartment, slamming a demigod into the floor above had caved in most of the ceiling. Jarvis' recording of the Hulk saying, "Puny God," had been worth the mess. Bruce had to laugh after hearing it and the story behind it. There was only one thing left to do before they left. Thor was supposed to return Loki and the Tesseract to Asgard today. The Tesseract, it was agreed, should not be in mortal hands, and with it back in Asgard, they would have enough power to rebuild the Bifrost Bridge. Thor pretended it wasn't a big deal, but everyone knew he had a mortal girlfriend he wanted to see again, which he wouldn't be able to do without the bridge. Loki, on the other hand, was not as excited about his brother's return, but screw that little b*tch. Naruto tried talking to Loki again after his defeat, but he was still a little messed up. Okay, Loki was a nutcase, but it wasn't Naruto's fault. Oh, Thor explained how he was able to carry his hammer. Odin had enchanted Mjolnir so that only those worthy of it or wielding it could even lift it. To demonstrate his point, he challenged everyone to try lifting it. Tony couldn't move it even while wearing his most powerful armor, which sent him running back to his workshop. Natalia tried next, but Naruto could tell she didn't really try, probably because she didn't care if she was worthy or not. Clint Barton was up next, thinking he'd be clever and push the handle to the side in an attempt to get his fingers under it. Fortunately, he failed, because Naruto was pretty sure he wouldn't have any fingers if he had gotten them under the thing. Bruce took 2 turns with Thor's permission. He tried it first as himself, then, with Naruto nearby to keep him calm, he willingly transformed into the Hulk and tried it again. Naruto was the one who explained it to Bruce's beastly side and told him to give it his all. Hulk actually grinned as he tried it, until he couldn't lift it. He tried for a minute, becoming increasingly enraged, until Naruto calmed him down and offered to arm wrestle with him instead. Thankfully, Naruto intervened at that point and stopped them both before they could do any damage. Everyone looked at her as if she were the bravest woman in the world because she was no longer afraid of the Hulk and told him flatly that there would be no arm wrestling, but she had chocolate chip cookies for him if he behaved. 6 dozen cookies and 3 gallons of milk later, the Hulk had had enough and dozed off sucking his thumb, reverting to Bruce, who slept through the final 2 tests. Naruto had the evidence in the form of photographs. The final two tests were fairly quick, though the last one made a few people reconsider Steve. Naruto began by picking up the hammer as easily as possible, but then tossed it to Steve, who caught it with a stunned expression on his face. Everyone stared at Steve as he held the god's weapon in his hands, stammering about not being worthy until Naruto told him to shut up and return Thor's toy. Finally, Naruto agreed to let them arm wrestle because Thor wanted to see how strong Naruto was in comparison to the Odin-san. Thor's surprise was palpable when his hand was pinned to the table faster than he could blink. After 25 rematches, he was convinced Naruto was stronger than him. Tony simply laughed, admitting that he had suspected it all along due to Naruto's ability to shred his armor with his bare hands. That prompted a second test of strength, which prompted another, until Naruto summoned them all to lunch, declaring that they had proven they had dicks enough for one day. Thor and Loki were sent off the next morning. Fury had warned them not to draw too much attention to themselves during their battle. Naruto provided a distraction by dispatching several groups of clones disguised as his teammates to various locations throughout the city. While the clones occupied everyone's attention, the Avengers proceeded to Central Park, where Thor inserted the Tesseract into a specially crafted device for transporting himself and Loki back to Asgard. The device activated and Thor was gone after several warm goodbyes and Naruto kissing the blushing Thor on the cheek. Naruto stood there with Naruto, smiling, as everyone else left for their respective destinations. Bruce was going to work with Tony at Stark now that the charges against him had been dropped. Meanwhile, Steve had requested and been granted permission to take a road trip around the country in the hopes of better understanding this new country. Barton and Romanova were returning to S.H.I.E.L.D., but Naruto knew they were also relieved to be back on the same side. Naruto and Naruto had planned a trip to Japan to investigate Naruto's family and see if any members of the family still lived there. Overall, it was a satisfying conclusion to a fantastic adventure, even if Fury expected them all to be on call at all times. "I was thinking, Naruto," Naruto said as they walked through the park. "How about May for our wedding?" Naruto shrugged, not really caring either way as long as Naruto was happy. "It is entirely up to you. Granny Tsunade once told me that weddings are about the bride, not the groom. So you choose the time and location, and I'll be there. All that matters is that when it's all said and done, you and I will be together for the rest of our lives. Then we make sure we're back by the 1st of May, then we can finalize the preparations and be married and on our honeymoon before anything can go wrong," Naruto said, standing on her toes to kiss his cheek. "Sounds like a plan," Naruto agreed. "We're getting married in May, but I don't think anything will go wrong." "Never say never," Naruto said as they walked away into the distance. The end. For the time being. Final points of view. She stood in the shadows, watching Naruto and the girl on his arm walk away. It was a perversion for Naruto to end up with a living version of his twisted technique. That was fine because she was about to make the little tramp pay with her life. Nobody could ever take Naruto away from her. No one. Fury stood guard over his crew as they worked tirelessly to bring the carrier back up to speed. Naruto had been gracious enough to lend him several hundred clones who were currently removing debris. S.H.I.E.L.D. was down, but they weren't out, and as God was witness, they'd rise from the ashes. S.H.I.E.L.D., along with the Avengers and Naruto, would be around long after Nick Fury was gone, protecting the country he adored. "Hill," he exclaimed to his second-in-command. "We need to get back in the air as soon as possible." "Sir, yes." Fury turned and walked back out of the control center, a small smile on his lips. Yes, things were a mess right now, but they were improving by the minute. They'd be back up to full strength soon, and then they'd be on the lookout for anyone who tried to harm the country or the people Fury cared about. He would defend them and give his life if necessary. It would be a painful sacrifice for him to make, but he would do it regardless if it meant keeping everyone safe. But, before that, he had a lot more work to do, and getting the helicarrier into the air was only the first step. not to mention that it might not be such a big deal. I'm not thrilled with the idea, Furry grumbled, looking at the door in front of him. Perhaps it'll be something I need to work on again. Fury turned and walked away, his gaze fixed on the door. He was gone in an instant, leaving the doorway behind him unopened. The hallway lights were still shattered and flickering, but they revealed 3 large letters on the scorched door. Since the contents of the laboratory behind it had been transferred here from their previous location, this door had been sealed. Those who knew what was beyond the door either thought it was a waste that the research had been halted or wished it had never begun. In either case, both sides had valid reasons for their feelings, but both agreed that the project should never be restarted now that it had been halted. So, sealed in one of the deepest parts of the massive carrier stood a door with only 3 visible letters on it, waiting to be opened. LMD.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.